Hi.
All right.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Leo.
Hi.
So I am Satish, and this is my friend Leo. We both are flatmates. We both are working in IT industry in Singapore. And the agenda for today's video is like mostly we're gonna talk about how is our lives in Singapore, how did we end up here, and what sort of preparations we had to do to be here. And also in the end, we might discuss a bit about our salaries, what sort of money you're making on, for example, if you're planning to move to Singapore, what sort of salaries you can expect. So over to you, Leo. Maybe you wanna start something about yourself and how did you end up in Singapore?
My name is Leonardo Ginting. So I'm originally from Indonesia. And before I moved to Singapore, I was working on Central Bank of Indonesia's IT profession. So I think I am now around 6 months already in Singapore. I guess, I think that's all for
All right.
one short introduction.
All right. Yeah. So you know me. I'm from India, but people who are from Leo's channel, yeah, I was born in India, and before I moved to Singapore, I was doing a master's in Germany, and I was approached by a company in Singapore, and they were actually paying me really well. I also thought about the taxes that you end up paying in Germany, which is like 40%. So yeah, based on that, I made my decision to move here, and that's actually a good decision. I moved to Singapore in December, and roughly it's been 3.5 months in this city. The city is very lively, very nice. I would say very friendly people, and I was lucky to meet Leo as well. So we both are living in one of the most premium apartment, which I would say it's a very fantastic view of the city. This place is called Golden Mile Complex.
Golden Mile, yes. Correct.
And right in front of us is the Marina Bay Sands and also the Strait of Malacca, where most of the ship passes. Yeah, that's pretty short, and maybe we're gonna delve deep into the other stuffs, like what sort of preparation we had to do to be here in terms of technical preparation and what sort of salaries you can expect if you try to move to Singapore. Over to you, Leo. So maybe you can talk a bit about your professional career. How was your career before, and when you moved in here, how different it was?
Yeah, actually, this is my dream job. So actually, I have a dream that I'm someday working overseas, and this one is my first time working overseas, and I'm lucky to be selected as to be working here. So when I was back in Indonesia, there was a call. So before pre-COVID, actually, it is quite difficult to have a job, to find a job here. So actually, I applied many times in Singapore. They never reply back. So at the time, I think I'm quite actually, I forgot it. And then later on, there is a call, okay, from headhunter. So in short, I got follow this interview. I follow the tasks. We have the hackathon, a day of hackathon. So I got selected from that hackathon. So yeah, I think that's my short story, how I get selected. How about you, Satish?
Yeah. So as I said before, I was doing a master's in Germany. And one of the things which always struck me was like I would actually end up getting a degree at the end of my master's, but it was not adding too much value, in terms of my technical competencies.
Mm-hmm.
And most of my time, in my free time, I used to sit back and do lead code. So that's something which really helped me. So in terms of preparation, I would say I mostly worked on my programming skills in C++. I did a lot of practice in data structures, algorithms, and I solved a ton of lead code questions. So when I was finally approached by, again, a headhunter in Singapore, and they offered me a very good position, the interview for me was rather easy because I had gone through this tedious process of preparation and those sort of stuff. So, and then they offered me a very good salary here. The taxes in Singapore are really low. You won't even feel that you are paying taxes.
Yeah, but there is a trade-off, right?
Yeah, there's obviously, yeah, there's a trade-off. If you're working in Europe and stuff, you pay a lot of taxes, but the good part of it's like the government takes care of you. When you grow old, when you have a family, a lot of your expenses are being taken care by the government. Here, it's more like a capitalist society. I think more like what would you find in US. You end up paying very less taxes, but at the end you are on your own. Yes, there are potentially some benefits for people who have PR in Singapore or who are like from Singapore. They end up having a very nice accommodation. They can even buy it. It's called HDB, and they end up paying very less prices. It's highly subsidized by the Singapore government here. So yeah, long story short, this is how I end up in Singapore, and last 3.5 months, it's been really fantastic in the city. The weather is nice. When I moved in here, I felt the weather is very clumsy. It's always hot and humid. But I think it takes time, maybe a couple of months, for your body to get used to it. And now I think it's very nice. You feel very happy when you see the sun, because there's something you miss when you work or you live in Europe. There'll be months where you don't see the sun, and now I'm really happy to be here because we have these bright sunny days most of the days. Yeah. Over to you, Leo. Yeah, maybe you can talk about how your experience been so far in Singapore.
So in terms of experience, I guess transportation will be main benefit in Singapore. So we can get to one point to another point. It is quite far. That's why it is quite fast. And it is, I mean, for transportation, it's quite easy. You can get it and very cheap as well. So that is, I think, one of main benefits that I can end up here. I mean, what I experienced while I'm on Singapore. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Just to add up on this, Singapore has one of the best public transport. I mean, I could even compare with the country like Germany, for example. The houses in general in Singapore is really expensive. It's on the higher side. And I think the idea which I got from the people when I talked with them, it's like in the last couple of years after the pandemic, the interest rates has gone up.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the living cost has skyrocketed in last couple of years. But the transport is still really subsidized. So you end up saving a lot of time and money when you use the public transportation. Also, the government discourages you to have your public vehicle, for example, have your private vehicle. Because if you plan to buy a car, then maybe you have to pay a hefty amount to the government, and that's for 10 years. So a rough estimation would be somewhere around $60,000 or $70,000, maybe.
Depends on
the car, yeah. But that's the minimum that you need to pay to the government, and that's only for 10 years. After that, you need to renew it. So it's a very expensive affair if you want to have your own private vehicle. But public transport is really, really affordable and really well connected.
Okay, so my question, Satish. So I got this, actually, I read this question in Quora. Okay, so someone is asking, how can I get a job on overseas? So from your experience, how can you get a job? How can you, is the only way for you to get a job to have a master degree in overseas? You can share your experience or from your colleague or something like that.
All right. Yeah. I don't think the master's degree is that important. Yes, there are countries which kind of prefers people. For example, Germany. It gives you the time. You come there, you do a degree, you settle down, and you kind of get used to their culture and their way of life. And then you can find a job in the field that you're doing your master's, maybe. But that's not very generic. I think most parts of the world, if you have a bachelor's degree and a work experience, that is often more highly valued by the recruiter than just having a master's degree. So the first thing I would tell you is like, get your basics strong. The kind of work that you're doing, be good at it. And if you're into this industry for a couple of years, you know the gaps that you need to fill in, maybe work on those. The second most important thing, which I would recommend most people to have it, is like have a very strong connections on LinkedIn. Because most of the jobs that I had in the past,
right,
I was able to get it through LinkedIn. So having a very strong connections with recruiters and all, it's really important to have overseas, the jobs opportunities. Because nowadays, I think there's also a badge on LinkedIn which says that you're open to work. And so you
Yep,
put that
yep,
batch,
yep.
and that makes it easier for the recruiter to kind of identify that yes, this particular person is open for work. And yeah, you also let's say for example, you search for your dream company. For me, like say for example, Continental. I would follow the page of Continental. I would look for any new post that Continental is doing. I would look for people who reacts to those posts. I will filter out people, potential recruiters, alumni, and those sort of stuff. I would add them into my professional network, and that really helps because it kind of give you a updated, news about when the hiring is going on and what the company is looking for. The other thing which I would like to point out is like be ready, because I see a lot of people when they are approached by the recruiters, they delay the process of being interviewed because they think that if they delay it like a couple of weeks, they'll prepare better. That's not going to work out in a lot of cases because most of the time, what I see in the trend, the market is like they have urgent requirements and they want to fill the position as quickly as they can. And since we are living in a time where the world is so connected, it's really easy for the recruiter to find somebody else for your replacement. So be ready. When you get approached by the recruiter, maybe try to schedule the interview within 1 week or 2 weeks. That's the ideal time.
Okay, so to add your points, we need to have like strong connection on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
right? So I think we can follow the companies we would like to apply, or the alumni, right? And then in my case, so okay, actually, I've never thinking that I will end up here on Singapore. So last time, actually, I told you I applied a lot and didn't have, nobody's replying. So, actually, and then after that, so the point is, having this kind of connection in LinkedIn, not only LinkedIn, I have also, posting my CV on one of job portal, which is like monster.com. So that is from that monster.com also, there are many headhunter who is coming, is searching for candidate, right? So many times I got call from also monster.com. So that is to add to your list if you wanted to have a kind of job and to have recruiters that comes from outside and offer you also some opportunities overseas.
Yes, absolutely. And every country has some of those websites. For example, if you're applying in India, Naukri.com is one of the very famous websites.
Yes.
Indeed, another one. So,
Indeed, yeah.
do a research about the countries you're targeting and what sort of websites are really popular. The job portals, which are really popular in that countries, because that's where most of the recruiters are going to end up posting their jobs opening. Apart from LinkedIn, you can work on the stuff as Leo mentioned, monster.com. So these are some of the very basic stuff that you need to follow if you're applying to find a job. And for me as well, I had never planned that I would end up in Singapore. It was a very, I would say, a random decision because I was doing a master. I was in between a master's and I got this offer.
Do you think, for you, it is difficult for you to change your career from Europe, which most people, for example, like to be there, to go to Asia?
Okay.
And then Singapore.
So I would try to put a very practical aspect to it. If you're working in IT, the IT industry is like, it pays you really well. And as an IT engineer, you should always be willing to move where the money is. So that's my thumb rule, But yes, if you talk with people, especially from the Asia and South Asia, they always aspire to work in Europe. But to be really honest, I just say that Europe is not a wonderland, every country has its own problems and there are pros and cons. So the work-life balance, I would say, is far better in Europe. But again, the kind of friendly environment that you get in a country like Singapore, you won't find that in Europe.
You have any difficulties, like for example, okay, so when you move from Europe to Singapore, right? So any type of any difficulties? I mean, while you're trying to find a apartment, for example, where do you get this apartment, and then how you can, how you know this apartment, right? Or do you, and what sort of documents that you need to prepare for you to be here?
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a very important question. So, yeah, so I'll start with the apartment hunt. I joined, I think, 4 or 5 Facebook groups. And yeah, there are a lot of Facebook groups where sometimes the owners or the agents, they keep on posting for the vacancies that they have
Okay,
for the apartment.
Since you are mentioning that you are joining in the Facebook group, don't you really afraid that there is some like people who
Scammers.
yes, scam your money, right?
Yeah.
How you differentiate between what is real and what is not?
So, yeah, good question. So, the one thing which I personally view, I would say, is like your own intuition. So, if somebody is asking you money upfront before you have even moved into this country, most likely it's going to be scam. I'm not telling that all of them would be a scam. But if somebody is asking for just a token money or so, that's still okay. But I would say like it all boils down to your personal intuition. If you feel that that guy is trying to scam you, maybe it's not a good idea to give him money upfront. The good thing for me was like I talked with a lot of agents and a lot of people who had posted it ads for the open places in their rooms or apartments, and none of them asked me for money upfront. Yeah, they always ask me that once you arrive in Singapore, maybe you can give me money. Yeah, the first month's salary. I'm sorry, the first month's rent and the
Deposit.
1 month's deposit. So that's something which I look for. I think I was also had encounter with a couple of agents who said that they're gonna charge me around 1 month of rent for as a commission. And there was one guy who was asking me to send money when I was there in Germany itself. So I just immediately ignored that guy. So maybe yes. Again, I think you guys are smart enough to figure out if somebody's trying to scam you.
Yeah.
So how did you find the
Okay,
place?
so I had my friend here actually in Singapore working. So before I was moving here, so I was digging some information through him. So one of his recommendation is Facebook. He mentioned one group, so I follow that group, and also there is a expat group in Singapore Facebook that I follow. Usually, I also post a question, kind of like living expense, how many amount that I need to spend here, so that kind of stuff, and also through Property Guru. So post I arrived on Singapore, actually, I got this apartment through Facebook. So yeah, Facebook will be, I think, good option for you to have a apartment as a apartment hunter. And also the second thing is also, in my opinion, is good is Property Guru. So that this is one of most trusted website to find a apartment.
So these are some of the insights, and maybe we can talk about what sort of salaries that you can expect when you move to Singapore. Maybe
I think for salary, it depends on the work pass. So now what I know about work pass, there is, I think, many types of work pass, which is EP, PEP, I think the highest one, EP, S pass, I think, for below S pass, I'm not sure. So, okay. So, for guidance salary for EP, usually EP is a professional worker. So, I think like supervisor. So, usually it requires you have certain skills to have the EP. So for EP, you will get in minimum like 6,500 as a salary.
Yes.
That is starting point. So you can expect from there to go up. Usually, in my case, while I'm back in Indonesia, the headhunter will offer me as much as 8,000. but it depends on your. I would like to say that it depends on your experience and how you encounter with them.
Yeah, also negotiation skills. Yes.
Negotiation, yes, correct. So how about it? I mean, yeah, you can share.
Yeah. So as Leo mentioned, it's absolutely correct. Just I would say, like, if you plan to move to Singapore, because there'll be a lot of headhunters who try to maximize their profit and try to tell you maybe this much salary is okay for Singapore. But I would say, like, to have a decent life in Singapore, don't come for less than $5,000.
Yes, of course, obviously.
So
Okay, before we dig into the game, so tell me, Sapis, why you are not recommending for people like below 5,000 to
Okay.
to go
Yeah.
here?
So there's two scenarios. One, like, if you're a bachelor, maybe 5,000 is okay for you, because roughly around 1,200 to 1,500 you would spend on your accommodation, and maybe 1,000 more for food and maybe some sort of recreational activities and stuff. So I would say a safe estimate would be like $3,000 is what you'll end up spending every month.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you'll just end up with $2,000. If that's good for you, maybe you can plan to come here. But if you have a family with you, I think 5,000 is really less, because you need a bigger house. And if you have kids who you need to put them into
Yes,
school,
for
and all,
family,
yeah,
it's
it's not worth to relocate here, because Singapore is really expensive.
expensive.
If you search for the most expensive places to live in,
I think Singapore is number one.
number one. Yes.
Yes, right.
So though the food and transportation is not as expensive, but houses in
Houses,
general
yes,
are.
houses.
Yes. So just a basic recommendation. I mean, it's all boils down to your personal preferences, and lifestyle is something which is very subjective. You know, I mean, it boils down to individuals' lifestyle, how they want to live their life. But as a recommendation, I would say maybe try to negotiate your salary in upsticks of like 5,000. Because if you come for like below 5,000, you'll still end up living a decent life, but you'll not save up a lot of money.
Yeah. Especially for my case, I have family, and I have one kid. So that's why, for me, it's quite difficult if I don't have that. I mean, if I, for example, move here and then having like 5,000, I think if I convert it to Indonesian rupiah, so currency, that is quite decent amount.
Yeah.
But in Singapore, it is not that. It is not that. This is not that case. Okay. So I think for me, you can, if you have family and you have kind of experience, you can shoot up to like 8 or more. It depends on you. Depends on your headhunter. It depends on the requirement. So you can shoot up to that kind of amount, and then I think for that kind of amount, you can live quite decent life here. It depends how you will spend your money in the end. So yeah, I think that is all.
Yeah, I think we covered most of the things that we wanted to cover in this particular talk. Yeah, maybe we'll catch up another vlog, and then we can talk a bit more about the life in Singapore, lifestyle, the cuisine, and all other sort of stuff. But that's there for another video. For now, bye bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.